This episode is presented by the Visit Cedar City Brian Head Tourism Bureau. Discover the art of adventure at Utah's gateway to the parks. Cedar City is within a few hours' drive from 6 different national parks and monuments, and only 30 minutes from fresh snow at Brian Head Resort. Check out visitcedarcity.com to plan your next trip. This episode is sponsored by the Cedar City Business and Innovation Center, dedicated to supporting local businesses and entrepreneurs. It provides resources and services aimed at fostering business creation, growth, and retention. The center features the Makerspace, where entrepreneurs and small businesses can have access to 3D printers, video production, and photography equipment, t-shirt printing, and more. Whether you're starting a new venture or looking to expand an existing one, the Cedar City Business and Innovation Center offers the tools and guidance to help you succeed. To learn more and get involved, visit innovationcenter.cc. Hello and welcome to another episode of Explore Local Podcast, presented by Visit Cedar City Brian Head in partnership with Cedar City Iron County Economic Development. This is produced by Dallas Smith Media, and I'm your host, David Johnson, Economic Development Director for Cedar City and Iron County. All right, and welcome to the podcast. Today we have Hayden Hawks, who is a world-ranked top professional trail runner. Hayden, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be doing a podcast here in Cedar City. You know, Cedar City means a lot to me. It's my home, and it's where I met my wife and, started my family. So really happy to be here and be doing a podcast with you guys. Yeah,
really, really grateful to have you. I mean, you and we've interacted in the past. I have a passion for running and a passion for the outdoors. And I thought, who better than Hayden to come on this podcast and really highlight the trails and everything that we have here as a professional trail runner. I mean, like you said right before the show that you know every trail in the area. So I'm really excited to dive into that. Maybe talk about some of your favorite trails, and maybe you don't talk about all of them because you don't want them to be overcrowded. But yeah, it's really great. And I don't typically do this, but I wanted to pull up on my phone just a few highlights that you've had recently. So recently you took first place in the Black Canyon Ultra, right? And third at the Western States 100, which for those who don't know much about trail running and ultra running, this is a big deal. They're world-renowned trail runners from all over the place running extremely fast. So for example, Black Canyon Ultra, you ran, I think the average was like 7:15 miles over a 100K, which it's about 62 miles or so, 62 right?
62 miles, yeah.
What kind of elevation did you experience in that race?
That one's a little bit flatter. That one's down in like the Phoenix area.
Uh-huh.
And it's considered the most competitive 100K in North America.
Because it's a fast one, right?
Yeah, and it's a qualifier for Western States. So you get all like the best professional athletes out there trying to get a golden ticket is what they call for Western States.
Right.
And yeah, it's a pretty historical race, pretty well known in the community. But yeah, it's got like, I think 8,000, maybe 9,000 feet of elevation gain total, but it's all on trail. It's like pretty rocky.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not smooth trail. You have a little bit of mix of some dirt roads and stuff in there. But yeah, you pretty much run from Black Canyon. Oh, actually, a little bit north of Black Canyon City, if people know where that's at, just north of Phoenix. And you pretty much finish in northern Phoenix,
okay.
Kind of in that area. So yeah, it's a point-to-point course, beautiful course. You get to run through all the cactuses and everything else. And yeah, it was a pretty big win for me, especially coming off of an injury that I had in 2023.
Yeah, and I actually want to kind of dive into some of that too when we get going into the podcast here. To give the common Joe, the average Joe perspective on your time. So you ran that 100K, 62 miles, 7 hours and 30 minutes and 18 seconds. The reason why that stands out to me is I did a 50K like 2 years ago. Now, granted, I had, I think it was like 8,000 elevation gain or something in that. But I ran a 50K in 7 hours and 30 minutes. And I averaged like 13-minute miles or 14-minute miles. And I was still like 10th overall. But then I go and I look at what you've ran, and, you know, I consider myself a pretty decent runner, but when you look at the level of professional runners, it just blows me away. Like it's an honor to actually have you on the podcast. Maybe it's a little biased in bringing you on the podcast because I love running so much. You're one of my trail running idols. So it's really cool to have you. But I guess let's take a step back though. So tell the audience where you're originally from and how you came to Cedar City.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Ivins, Utah, so down near St. George, and went to Snow Canyon High School down there. I grew up in Southern Utah, loved growing up in Southern Utah. You know, as a kid, we were always out in the mountains, in the national parks. You know, we were hiking around Zion all the time, you know, doing different things like that. So I grew up having a really good childhood, I would say. You know, my parents were really outdoorsy. They would bring us outdoors and we'd go camping all the time and hunting and fishing. And we do a lot of different things here in Southern Utah. You know, Southern Utah is an amazing place to grow up because it's such a huge playground. There's so much that you can do here, you know, from the deserts down south to, you know, you start making your way up here towards Cedar City and Iron County, and you have the mountains, and you can get up, you know, into the high mountains, and you can ski, and you can be, I guess, on the lake, you know, wakeboarding in the same day if you really want to.
That's funny. You stole a line that I say all the time. On the same day, you could be skiing the slopes or skiing on the water in the same day around here.
Yeah. And it's amazing. Like, it really is. And then if you go up towards like Beaver, you got the Tusher Mountains, which are like really high alpine. Mm-hmm. And it's all within like an hour, you know, maybe a 2-hour drive, which is so cool. But yeah, I grew up in Ivins, and then I had a really successful high school track and field and cross country career. Yeah. I won the state championship when I was a senior, was one of the better runners in the state of Utah. And I started getting scholarship opportunities. Wow. And, you know, I got some scholarship opportunities to BYU and Utah State and UVU and some out of state schools as well. But,
and just so people know, like BYU wins national champions and championships every year in running, but you decided,
I chose SUU. Yeah. I don't know. There was something about SUU. At the time, Cam Levins was running at SUU. I really liked Coach Houle and the program that they had here at SUU. And so, yeah, I chose to come to SUU on a scholarship and run cross country and track and field here in Cedar City. And I'm really happy that I did. I had a great career here at SUU. I was an All-American, had a very successful, career, and also just a great time. I loved the university. I loved the team, you know, that we had here. At the time, like SU hadn't qualified for nationals in years. And I was part of the team that helped us get back into the national championships. And we, you know, continued that tradition for many, many years. I think they've now qualified for 10 or 12 straight years or
That's
something
awesome.
like that. I don't know exactly.
You kind of helped set this catalyst.
And it was really cool to be a part of that and to help grow the team here and, you know, just really build kind of this tradition here at SUU. I mean, they already had kind of a tradition before, but it was really fun. And I also met my wife. You know, my wife was on the team at SUU as well with me. And, you know, we met through running and we got to know each other. And yeah, we decided to settle here after school. After graduating from SUU, I started running professionally, and we said, you know, Cedar City is an awesome place to live. It's an awesome place to train. You're at high altitude. There's nowhere else that, you know, we'd rather be. We have family close by. And so, yeah, we decided to stay and build our family here and start my career here in Cedar City.
So do you think by going and running for Southern Utah University, that played a role in transitioning from the road and track into the professional trail running, or how did that kind of come about as a collegiate runner? Yeah,
I mean, I always loved cross country a lot more than track and field. Like, track and field was fun and all, but I just did it because I kind of had to. Yeah, I really loved cross country season. That was my favorite thing, and that's actually what I was an All-American in, was cross country. Yeah. And so I just really loved being on the trails. Like, anytime our coach would like give us a free day where we could just go run, I'd go to the trails. You know, I'd go run up in Razorbacks, you know, here in Cedar City, or I'd go run up the Sea Trail or something
Right.
like that. And that was kind of like where my love and my passion was I loved running, but I loved running on trails. And so after college, I was going to actually pursue a road running or track and field career because kind of that's where the money is.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where the, professional teams are and different things like that. But to be honest with you, I didn't really I don't know.
Your heart wasn't in
My
it.
heart wasn't in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just kind of was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. Wonder if there's another way that I can, run and still like kind of have that passion and that love. And I had a friend who was running trails at the time, and he invited me to come and run the U.S. Championships, which was out in New Hampshire. And at the time, it was a qualifier for the World Championships.
And this is trail running.
Yeah, this was like a 10-kilometer race, up and down. So you ran up the mountain about 5K and then back down the mountain. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Like
cross country on steroids, basically.
Exactly. That's pretty much what it was. And I never ran, that much vert. I ran up the Sea Trail, but like never that hard.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, let's go do it. Let's go see what can happen. Like that year, if you qualified for the national team, you got a free trip to Bulgaria.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because that's where the World Championships was that year, was in Bulgaria. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So we went out there, ended up taking 4th.
Wow.
And top six qualified for the national team. And so, yeah, I qualified for the national team. Got to go out to Bulgaria that fall and ended up actually placing 4th at the World Championships.
Wow.
In my first ever international World Championship race.
And so do you sport like the Team USA jersey or singlet and everything in that?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's exactly the same as like the Olympics for us, where like you sport the US national jersey, you're on a team, you're representing your country, you're competing against every other country in the world.
Yeah.
In that sport, like, because mountain running is a little bit different than ultra running. I mean, that's kind of like, I guess you could kind of say like it's like 5K, 10K on the track compared to marathon. It's a little different. Marathon being ultra running, 10K being the mountain running. And at the time, like Uganda was really strong. Kenya was really strong, kind of like we see on the track.
Yeah.
But also Italy. Italy was like the powerhouse. They had won like 30 or so world championships.
Well, all the mountain running they can get done.
Exactly.
Italy,
and that's where actually where mountain running started, was in Italy.
That makes sense.
And so anyways, we ended up beating Italy that year, I think by 1 or 2 points.
Wow.
And we won the world championships. It was the first time the U.S. had ever won the world championship.
That's so
and,
awesome.
I was a part of that, and it was pretty cool. And that was kind of how I started my career in this. Like after that, I was like, wow, I love this.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Like, how can I do this? And I ended up getting sponsored and started working with Hoka. Yeah. And it kind of went from there.
And that was some of Hoka's early days too, right? When they were kind of getting up and going. If people don't know Hoka is a running shoe. You've probably seen them. They're known for being just a really thick, cushioned running shoe. The average person probably recognize Hoka, but
yeah, they're becoming a lot more common, especially you see like a lot of nurses and doctors and stuff wear them as well.
Yeah, good cushion on their feet. Yeah.
I mean, that's the brand to be with right now in my sport is Hoka. Like they are investing the most into the sport. And it's it's an honor to be sponsored by them. I've been working with them for about, so that was 2016 when I did that World Champ. So I've been working with them for about 8 years now.
Yeah.
And it's been awesome.
Yeah. I didn't even realize that that's how you transitioned in. So here we have a world champion sitting at our table. I'm just saying that because I'm grinning, my grin's huge just thinking about that. It's such a cool accomplishment and kind of a fun way to kind of stumble into professional trail running, because most people do think of the road running. And in Utah, we have some amazing road running. You and I have talked about how the state is funding the Run Elite program, which has seen the likes of Connor Mance and Clayton Young and several other athletes that have actually come from out of state now because it's making such a name for itself. But here in trail running, we have a lot of professional trail runners. While things are picking up for our road runners, as far as getting some of the funding and the support, our trail runners are kind of in a similar boat that most runners are in, and maybe even more of a hard uphill battle and finding those sponsorships. So for example, some locals here in Utah, maybe name a few, and a lot of them are having to work full time or do side gigs just to
yeah,
make ends
not as
meet,
much
right?
anymore, actually. So like, there's so much money getting invested into the sport right
Really?
now, and it's actually the fastest growing sport in the world. Actually, marathoning is declining and trail running is increasing right now, which
Interesting.
is pretty crazy
Crazy to
see.
think of, yeah.
Because like ever since 2020, really, you know, when COVID hit
yeah.
and everything, everybody started going outdoors. And everybody started getting into the mountains more and into the trails more, and like we're seeing so many people come into the sport right now.
Interesting.
Yeah, the sport's just becoming more and more competitive every year, and just that means more money's coming into the sport as well, which is awesome.
Right.
It's really cool, but it means you got to be on top of your
Yeah.
training, and you got to be on your A game, because these young guys are always coming in and trying to win all these races, of course. But yeah, no. Right now in the state of Utah, we have some of the best trail runners in the world. We have Caleb Olson, who lives up in northern Utah, and he's one of the best right now. He's currently sponsored by Nike.
He got 4th place at Black Canyons. Is that right?
No, he got 5th place at Western States.
5th at Western States.
Oh, okay,
maybe that's what I was
so
thinking
Western
of.
States is pretty much like that's our championship here
Yeah.
in North America. I mean, that is one of the biggest races in the world. It's probably the second biggest race in the world. The biggest race in the world is UTMB, which is out in France. And along with UTMB, you have the OCC, the CCC. So you have the 50K, the 100K, and the 100-mile distance. And those are widely considered like our biggest races, our world championships, our Tour de France, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
If you win those races, I mean, they are career changing. They are like, you're the best in the world if you win one of those 3 races. But Western States is also a massive race, and it gets some of the best competition in the world, especially for North America. So that's a really prestigious race as well. So yeah, Caleb finished 5th there. You have Anthony Costalis, who's actually won Black Canyon as well.
Oh, wow.
And he's one of the best in the world right now as well. And then on the women's side, you have Leah Yingling, Rachel Drake. They've both been top 10 at Western States numerous times. And Tyler Green on the men's side as well. He's one of the best. He's been top 3 at Western States, I think 2 or 3 times. Wow. So yeah, right now we have some of the best in the world to go along with our amazing road runners as well. I mean, we have Olympians, we have world champions. I mean, the state of Utah it might be the best state in the country for running right now.
Well, and I think of when we were talking about skiing here in Cedar City, snow skiing and water skiing, the thought that came to my mind is, excuse me, when we were talking about the 2 different types of skiing, the thought that came to my mind was Cedar City is so centrally located as far as terrain is concerned. So you can hit the high mountains or you can hit the low desert, right? And have that variability in the cold and the heat, you name it. I mean, we were just talking beforehand, today's snowy outside. We're kind of dreading that, especially you with trail running, because you've got to go hit up a warmer climate, but it's only 30, 40 minutes away, depending on what trails you're hitting up. There's a lot of thoughts that I'm having, actually.
I mean, it is nice, right? Because I have a 2-hour run today.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be on trails because I'm preparing for a big race in New Zealand in February, and I'm just trying to, get some good training in right now. And so I'm going to go drive 20, 30 minutes to like Leeds, which is just outside of St. George. I'll be on dry trails. Yeah. All I got to do is hop on the I-15, head down south a bit, and I'm on dry trails. And it's amazing to have that access. Right. But then also like in the summertime or in the spring or fall, like I can be up on Cedar Mountain here, up by Bryan Head, and I can be at 10,000 feet almost, doing like some pretty high mountain alpine type running, which is key for like that race that I do out, that UTMB race that I was talking about is high alpine in the Alps. And, we can mimic a lot of that here. Western States, the trails, if you go up the canyon here and you run the Blowhard Trail or you run the Virgin River Rim Trail up by Navajo Lake, like those are very similar to Western States type terrain. Interesting. In the high country. And then like Black Canyon, I can head down south to the, Prospector Trail, different things like that. And those mimic Black Canyon. So I can pretty much train for almost anything here. The only thing I can't really train for is like jungle terrain.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Yeah.
And sometimes I'll go race in Asia or something where
Yeah.
it's jungle, and I can't train for that really.
That level of humidity and such.
Yeah, but everything else I can.
You have to pull like what the high school wrestlers do, get like a garbage bag, so you just mimic the humidity.
I do some things like that. I have a sauna in my house, and so we do some of that stuff. Everything's about being specific.
Yeah.
Like you have to be specific and be like really prepared for whatever you're going to come across in these races. And so I try and mimic things as best possible to be specific. And the good thing is I don't have to do too much because I live here in Cedar City and, living at altitude as well. Like my house sits right on the base of the mountain here at around 6,000 feet. Yeah. And that's like ideal for an ultra or an endurance athlete to be at altitude. And so I can have all that here. And yeah, it's a beautiful, amazing place to live. And there's so much access to so many trails, so many different types of terrain. And just, like you have a lot of support here as well from the people. Yeah. Like it's an incredible community. I have so many friends that support me here, and I love living here. Yeah. So you were naming lots of different trails. Tell us what some of your favorite trails to run are, maybe a little bit about the length or the terrain and what you like about some of the trails out here. Probably my favorite trail is the Sea Trail. It's just outside my front door. I run that one a lot. I think I've ran it close to 100 times. And Sea Trail's just running up to the sea on the side of the mountain for Cedar City, right? So there's a big sea on the mountain. And it's about at like 9,000 feet or so. The city, of course, sits right around 6,000 feet. And so like, I'll run out my front door, run up the Sea Trail all the way up to the sea. Maybe add on a little bit at the top if I need to, but usually turn around at the sea and run back down. It's an incredible trail. It's beautiful. You get views of the city the entire time, views, looking out towards Three Peaks and out into the West Desert. And it's an incredible, I don't know, they really keep up the trail, which is awesome. You have switchbacks the whole way up. So I think it's about around 4 miles or so to the top with 2,000, maybe 500 feet. And I swear on Strava, I've seen you do repeats of that on some days. Do you do, is that what, do you do repeats on that? I have the record up and down it. And, you know, I've done repeats on it. Like I said, I've probably ran it close to 100 times in my career. So that's crazy. I use it quite often. I actually use it as like a test for my fitness. So if I'm going to do like a big mountain race or something, or a race where I have some big climbing, I'll go and run like a hard push up the Sea Trail just to see where my fitness is. So I have kind of times year after year of like, okay, this is where I'm at and this is where I need to be. And that's cool. It's a fun trail. Fitness benchmark. Yeah, exactly. I mentioned Strava. So anyone that maybe is not into trail running that's listening to this, Strava is like the Facebook for running and cycling, essentially. So a lot of professional trail runners and just runners in general are on Strava. And so sometimes, you know, you may have heard of Facebook stalking. I call it Strava stalking, which is actually some of how I think I got introduced to you originally. We ran into each other at the St. George Marathon, I think once before. But okay, so the Sea Trail. What about in some of the national parks or monuments areas? What are some of the really pretty trails that the other ones that I love the Lee Pass Trail. So if you just head a little south of here to the Kolob Canyons area, there's the Lee Pass Trail that goes over to Kolob Arch, and you can go up into Hop Valley. And that trail actually runs about 30 miles all the way down into Zion National Park to the grotto. You used to be able to extend it past there on the East Rim Trail, but that's closed down right now because of a rock slide. Oh, okay. But yeah, you can do like a 30-mile route on that. And so I'll use that in some of my training for like my longer ultras. I'll just have my wife drop me off and then pick me up at the end. Or that's awesome. Or I'll do an out and back. You know, it's an awesome trail. You run, you know, all the way up to Lava Point. And then you start dropping from there down into Zion National Park, into like the main canyon area. And it's one of the most beautiful runs in the world. I've ran everywhere. I've ran in the Himalaya. I've ran in the Alps. I was just down in South America in Patagonia area. And yeah, that's still one of my favorite and probably one of the most beautiful trails I've ever done. So yeah, I love that trail in Kolob Canyon. Also, another one of my favorite trails is the Blowhard Trail. So if you head up Cedar Canyon, right before you get to Wood Ranch, right there on the left-hand side. So like there's a trailhead, and it's the Blowhard Trail. A lot of people mountain bike it. They'll downhill mountain bike it because they can get dropped off at the top and then come all the way back down.
They cheat.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful trail, though. I love the trail. And
I would cheat too. You know, but
yeah. But it's a pretty steep one. I mean, I think from bottom to top, you're looking at like 6.5 miles with like 3,500 feet or so of elevation gain. But it's super beautiful. I mean, you run right past the what's it called? I'm trying to think. You run right past the Cedar Breaks. Cedar Breaks area.
Yeah, the Cedar Breaks National Monument.
Yeah, Cedar Breaks National Monument on the left-hand side there. You're looking down into like the Hoodoos and all those beautiful red canyons. And then you top out at like a little over 10,000 feet elevation. Yeah. And then you can turn around and run back down it, and you can get like a 13-mile run in. Beautiful terrain, fun downhill. Yeah. It's one of my favorites.
It's so cool that that right here we can see hoodoos and we can see like pine tree. You know what I mean? Like these forests, and they're all. That's what's really pretty. I mean, just here in Cedar City, when you look toward the mountains, toward the national monuments, national parks, you see the red hills, and then you see the trees, and especially when it's snowing right now, and it's a little dusting of the snow. It's unreal. It's beautiful the way it looks.
So that's 3. I'll do my top 5.
Okay, sure.
So my next 2, I would say is probably the Navajo Lake Loop.
Okay.
It's a little bit flatter, a little bit more
I've
rolling.
done that one.
Yeah, it's just a loop around Navajo Lake, up on top of, Cedar Mountain. It's an amazing loop. You get views of the lake the entire time. You're in the pine trees. Mm-hmm. If you want a little bit more rolling without as much vert, like
isn't there like there's like a lava field up? Isn't that Navajo?
You run through a lava field there, but you're also up in the high alpine as well. And it's an awesome loop around the lake. I think the full loop, if you want to do the full loop, there's different variations you can do. You can do a shorter one, or you can just do an out and back on the one that goes around the lake. But I think the full loop's around 13 miles or so. Okay, cool. And so that's a great one. And then my last one I'd say is probably the Southview trails. Mm-hmm. There's so many options over there. So I don't know if there's like one trail in particular that I love the most, but like you have the Turnpike Trail, which is a bit more rolling, heads out towards Schertz Canyon, beautiful trail, but you can also jump off of that trail and do a whole bunch of variations. I mean, you can go up, and start climbing up to the base of Square Mountain up there. And there's a trail called the Graveyard Trail. There's another trail up there that's called like Lava Flow. And you can kind of do a whole mix of stuff up there. That's awesome. Which those are all like really good mountain biking trails. Yeah. And so you do get quite a bit of mountain bikes out there, but for running, they're awesome as well and very flowy and just super fun. Yeah. Well, now we're going to have to do Hayden Hawks' top 5 trails as one of our promotional pieces or something. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, hey, you also mentioned your wife a little bit earlier. And I understand from what you were telling me that your wife does a trail running fundraiser each year. Do you maybe want to tell a little bit about that? Yeah. So we do like a fundraising race out at the Southview Trails, actually. This next year, it's going to be in April. And it's called the Eric Gray Challenge. So my wife's brother, Eric, his name was Eric Gray. He passed away from cancer when he was like 23 years old. And she, was very close with him. And she decided to put on a race in honor of him because he was a runner. He loved running, loved being out on the trails. And so we were like, let's start a race in honor of him. And what we do is every dollar that we make from the race goes towards a family in the community that's also fighting cancer. So we've had the opportunity to do it for, I think, 4 or 5 years now. And we've been able to like help some families here in the community that are, struggling with cancer. And so it's an awesome community event that we put on where people come out, they can support the person that we're doing the charity for. They can do a little, there's 3 distances. There's a mile, there's a 5K, and there's a 10K. So they're pretty like, everybody can do them. Yeah. Like if you want to just come out and walk a mile and donate some money, it's an awesome, it goes towards an awesome cause, helping the family. And also it's just a fun event. We have music, we have some some raffle, like a drawing thing and everything. We have some good, donuts and stuff at the finish line. And it's a small event, but we donate, or we actually raise quite a bit of money, and some of the local businesses will actually donate as well. And my wife works really hard, and she's awesome. She puts this on every year.
Right?
Ashley, yep.
Yeah.
And she's done such an incredible job with it, and I know the families are very grateful for all the hard work that's put in.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to digress here because that's really meaningful to me personally. So my mother's passed away from cancer when she was 38. And then my stepbrother, my father got remarried, and I had a stepbrother who passed away from cancer. I think he was around 21, somewhere around similar age as your brother-in-law, right? Mm-hmm. And one of my, two things about running related, three actually. He did cross country in high school. And when he was just out of high school, maybe he was still like a senior, we went and ran the Fish Lake Relay. I don't know if you've heard of that, but this 64-mile relay, and my brother and I and a few of our friends and my wife, we ran it, a co-ed team. We were one female short. So my wife and my buddy's wife ran extra legs, and we set the course record for the overall, not for men and co-ed and women. It was one of my favorite memories of my brother. And I remember when he passed, we came to Utah because I was living out of the state at the time. And I remember I just needed to go for a run, and I just went on a trail run. And I just remember just being able to just kind of reconnect, I guess, a little bit with my emotions and things. And one of my buddies came out, and we just went and did a trail run, and there was something so therapeutic about it. And you had mentioned COVID earlier, how outdoor stuff came up. And I think during that time, people realized they needed to disconnect, and they needed something therapeutic. Ironic, disconnect from, I should say, people were forced to disconnect, right? In a social way. And so we needed almost this therapeutic approach to reconnect. And I love that Ashley's putting on this fundraiser in honor of her brother. It means a lot to me personally, even though I didn't know her brother, but it immediately makes me think of loved ones that I had, and my brother was in, even though I think it started like before he was 18, or no, around when he was 18 or 19. And so he was in primary children's, and there's something to be said. Before he passed, we did a fundraiser where people donated a ton of money so we could just go do some stuff as a family, because we kind of knew where things were going, and it meant so much to have the support of the community to help our family.
I love how you brought up too, is like therapeutic, that trail, or just being out in the outdoors and what that can do for you. That's honestly a big part of why I am a professional trail runner, is I love running. I ran on the track. I ran on the roads for years, and nothing against the track or the roads, but I am not a city person. I don't like being in big cities. I don't like being surrounded by a whole bunch of people. And I always was like, how can I bring my love for the outdoors and, being out in the mountains and my love for running together. And that's kind of what trail running brought me, or ultra running brought me, is because I can be out there on the trails by myself. And there's actually a lot of connection I've seen with this, is and it's a lot of similarities. For instance, my dad's a hunter. He loves hunting. He hunts all around southern Utah. That's his alone time, where he can be out in the mountains. He can be out by himself, in hunting. Yeah. He doesn't run, or you have a lot of these ranchers. It's not for everyone, but you have a lot of these people that ride horses. You have these people that go out on their ATVs, and they're out there doing it because they love being in the outdoors, right? We're all very similar. Even though I just because I have some short shorts on and I'm running around the mountains at a faster clip. And you pass a guy on his horse with some cowboy boots. Yeah, it doesn't mean I'm any different than him, right? We're there for the same reason, because we want to be outdoors. We want to be connected with nature. We want to have these experiences. And even though we experience them in a little different way, right? It's still the same thing. Yeah. And I think that's what trail running and being in the outdoors does for you. And that's what I've seen. I love this sport beyond it being my career. Like it's something I'm going to do for the rest of my life, even after I do retire because of that.
Yeah.
And I think like it's pretty cool. And like Southern Utah in Iron County and Cedar City in general are a great place to be able to do that. Like there is so much access. There is so much opportunity out there. People just need to get out and they need to go experience it. It doesn't have to be running, a marathon or a 50K. You can go out for a hike or you can go out for a mile walk with your dog. But you can experience that same feeling. And I think that's like, it's really healthy. Yeah. And it can really help you with a lot of things, whether that be, mental health issues or physical health issues or whatever it is. That's what this can do, being active and being outdoors.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love this. This is a great digression because another time in my life where I stepped into a job that was really stressing me out, and there were, situations where we had moved and trying to figure out selling a home. There was a certain trail that I would hit about every weekend, and it had about 3,000 feet of elevation gain over just a few miles, and I would just power hike the heck out of that thing. And it really helped. And I like what you said though, but it doesn't have to be some intense thing.
No,
it can be just a nice stroll or a walk, or if you're into mountain biking, or if you're into hunting or fishing or whatever, it's about just kind of letting go a little bit. And a lot of nowadays what people do, and I think we're all a little guilty of this, is we scroll on our phone or we binge Netflix, where it used to be we hit outdoors.
Yeah.
And here in Iron County and Cedar City, that's what's so great here is you can do that. Mm-hmm. Like you described, you just run right outside your door and you're on that sea trail, or within an hour or two, you're from something spectacular that compares to anything else in the world that you would see, right?
And I think sometimes we take that for granted because like I've traveled the world. I've been to a lot of places.
Yeah.
I remember being in India one time, I was out doing a race in India and I was in the city. I think I was in Mumbai or something. And the access to the outdoors is pretty much impossible in a place like Mumbai.
Yeah.
Like there is really no access. Or like I've been to China in these really big cities, and it's really hard to find the outdoors. It's really hard to get out and like be alone.
Right.
Because there's just so many people and so much like infrastructure going on.
Right.
But here we don't have that, that issue. And so like we can do that here.
Right.
And so I would say, take advantage of those opportunities while you can. And, if you're feeling down or you feel like, hey, I need something else in my life, see if that helps.
Yeah.
It definitely can. And it's a way that you can like come closer together with your friends, with your family, or just with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what I guess this sport or this trail running and ultra running and has this outdoor lifestyle, I would say, has brought to me.
Well, you'll have to let me know and keep me posted. When's the date usually with your wife's fundraiser?
It's in April.
Okay.
I don't know the exact date.
Yeah, but
I think
generally
she's trying to sort it out. Yeah,
April
yeah,
time.
she's got to figure out some stuff with permitting and stuff. But it'll be in April. I think mid to late April is what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Just with weather and all, we want to make sure we have some good weather, and we also have to sort it around my race schedule.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
well, yeah, you'll have to keep me posted. And one distinction that I'm really glad you made is I've always loved trail running. I remember when I was a kid, one of my earliest memories is running somewhere in California, running down a dirt trail, zooming past my parents. I was probably, 7 or 8. And I just overheard my mom say, we don't need to get a lot for him for Christmas. He just pretty much wants like blue jeans, a white t-shirt, and some running shoes. And she named a couple other little things. I remember kind of overhearing that. And it resonated with me as a kid because I thought, I really just love running. And so it's cool to be engaged. But one of the distinctions that you made is the difference between mountain running and ultra running. So I signed up for an ultra on southeastern Utah. And I remember by the time I was like 3/4 of the way training, I'm like, I've trained and ran marathons, but the ultra running training, I was like, this is squashing the love of trail running out of me. It's just too long. What I love about road running is a cadence. And what I love about trail running is kind of the outdoors. And a lot of the trail runs that you find are like 50Ks and 100Ks, and you'll see some 30Ks. But I love how you distinguish the mountain running. I'm going to have to look more into that, because that's what I've said. I'm like, I just need something between like 5K and even a half marathon. That's my distance on the trail running. I just love, my wife calls me a gazelle, or can't remember what she nicknames me on when I'm like doing those downhill bombs and I just like skip past people. It's so fun.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of options for shorter racing. My wife, actually, that's all she really does is shorter racing. So she tried the ultras, didn't really like it.
Yeah. And that's kind of what happened to me.
Yeah. And it's a little bit harder to train for those as well, especially if you're a mom or if you're busy.
Yeah.
You know, there's just not as much time.
Right.
And you need a lot of time to train for ultra marathons, because your long runs are anywhere from 5 to 8 hours sometimes,
exactly.
You know? And so, yeah, anyways, she does a lot of like the 30K distances, 20Ks, different things like that. And usually if you look at any ultra, there is a shorter distance.
There's some step downs.
Yeah. Usually they're not as promoted, of course. Everybody promotes the ultra. And I feel like everybody in this world just wants to go longer and longer.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They want to be able to go back to the office and say, hey, I completed an Ironman, or I completed a 100-mile race, right? But the short races are just as cool.
Yeah.
And sometimes they require even more fitness and like more discipline, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
When you get into those ultras, it's more of like an eating game.
Yeah.
And like all the little logistics, getting all those things done. It's more of like a puzzle.
Yeah.
So if you're into that, ultra running is probably for you. But if you just want to go out there and hammer and have some fun and not have to think too much about all the little things, sign up for a 30K, sign up for a half marathon. Like, they're super fun. I still throw some of those into my training every now and then. And, my wife does them quite a bit. The US Championships was actually held up in Snowbird this year for mountain running. And so, Utah has a lot of options for short distance trail running.
Yeah, I love that. You actually reminded me of something too, is a lot of just average Joes, other than the qualifiers like Western States, can just sign up for some of these ultras. Yeah. When I looked at Black Canyons, when I was looking at your times and that you had won that, I started scrolling down, seeing what other professional runners, and, a little further down, I actually saw my buddy Corey listed on there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he ran the same race as Hayden, and I'm like, that would have been so cool. And so kind of like the Chicago Marathon, these, the road running, the trail running is the same. Average people can just sign up for
average people. And that's what's so cool about it, is like, we're in the same race as average people or the back of the pack people. Yeah. We're running at a bit different level. Sure. Maybe there's like an elite start and then everybody else starts. Yeah. But we're all in the same race. We're all trying to conquer the same thing, whether that be a mountain or whether that be running across the desert. Like, that is the ultimate goal, is to finish that and to conquer that. Like, you are like racing against each other at the elite side, but you're also racing against the terrain. Right. Or you're racing against the mountain. Right. And that's like what unifies us, is we're all in that together, trying to, beat that mountain or beat that desert or whatever it is. Right. And trail running is cool in that way, that it brings everybody together and anybody can do it. And we have so many options here in Southern Utah. There's a race up in the Tushers that happens at the end of July. There's some races down in Zion National Park, down in like the Virgin area that happen in April. So there are a lot of options around Southern Utah that you can sign up for. We need to get an ultra here in Cedar City. There used to be one. Really? But I think they've gotten rid of it, but
you and I
we
are
can bring
thinking
it
along
back.
the same lines. Because my events director with Cedar City, he's a runner. Yeah. And he puts on the Cedar City Half Marathon, which is a road race. But I'm thinking, as soon as he listens to this, him and I are going to be brainstorming with the Office of Tourism. How can we bring a cool trail run here to the area? Because we have so much of it. We should be able to take advantage of that, because there really is a tourism element that comes with these races. Like our Cedar City Half Marathon brings people from all over the country, and some international people, because just the beauty of the terrain. And so
and I'm not saying this will happen, but if you look at like the UTMB, which is like the biggest event in the world, right? Yeah. I go out there every year. I live in France during the summer to train for this event because it is the Tour de France.
That's a hard life.
Not
Sorry,
too hard.
teasing. Yeah, keep going.
Living in the Alps for 3 months. That's not
amazing.
too bad. But anyways, that event itself has literally changed that community, like Chamonix, where they like that event brings in, I think they said
economically
this year,
has changed.
Yeah, I think it brought in like close to 100,000 people this year.
Wow.
Like the event itself has like 20 or 30,000 runners across all the distances.
Wow.
And then you bring in their families and everybody else.
Yeah.
There was like over 100,000 people that were just at that event. I mean, if you think about the economic impact that could have in a community, like, of course, we're probably not going to get that here in Cedar City, but these events do help communities quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, and Cedar City in Iron County just has a history of creating destination events. That's why Cedar City is known as Festival City, right? And we have festivals like the Utah Shakespeare Festival. We have the Utah Summer Games. You know, we have just a lot of different events that we have going on. And to me, it's it's not a leap at all to implement maybe some trail running races. So I may have to pick your brain and connect you with my events director. Yeah, for sure. So, okay. So let's dive into, well, actually first, tell me a little bit about your, this is a little more down to earth, I guess. Tell me a little bit more about your running. Do you have like running buddies that you go out and you run here locally with? And what I'm getting at is, tell me about the running community here in this area.
Yeah. There's actually a pretty growing, I guess, running community here in Cedar City. It's pretty awesome. So I have about, 2 or 3 guys that I run with quite often. One of the guys, his name's Damon Chavez. He's actually one of the best, 200-mile runners in the entire world.
Talking about getting longer and longer, right?
Yeah, he really likes the long stuff. But yeah, he's also done really well at some like pretty prestigious 100-mile races. He lives here in town, works here. He's been living here for years, and I train with him quite often.
Wow.
So he's a fun guy to get out on the trails with. We have a guy named Nate Jukes.
Yeah,
Nate, was an All-American at SUU as well. And he's just, gotten into the trails recently, and he's been crushing it.
Yeah.
We have a lot of other guys that are doing a little bit more on the roads. Of course, we have my wife, and my wife's got some training partners, some ladies that she runs with as well.
She's speedy too.
Yeah, she does really well. And so, there is some like pretty good runners that are still here. A lot of them, graduated from SUU and they just stayed here.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of talent, floating around Cedar City, but also there's some other people that are just really starting to get into the trails and, into running in general.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot more growth in the community. We actually have too, one of the best athletes, endurance athletes of all time that lives right here in Cedar City. And maybe a lot of people don't know, but like, there's a lady that lives in town. She was an 8-time Ironman world champion.
Really?
At Kona.
Who is this?
Her name's Paula Newby Fraser.
Huh.
And so, you can look her up. She is absolute legend.
Is she from here originally?
No, she's from South Africa, actually.
Settled here.
But she lives here. Her and her husband live here. And they are amazing. She's actually a mentor of mine.
Oh,
She's helped me a lot with my career and different things. And I got to give it to her. She has really helped me a ton.
That's awesome.
Just with the knowledge she has. But we have some of the incredible endurance athletes here. There's athletes here in Cedar City that are now retired, but that have been on like national triathlon teams. There's a guy here who was a Tour de France rider. He was a professional cyclist, rode with like guys like Lance Armstrong and different guys like that. We have some incredible endurance athletes. A lot of people don't know about these people. Yeah. And maybe they don't get as much hype as they deserve. And I don't think they really want it, to be honest with you.
Well, it's a little more humble nature in the trail running community.
It is. Yeah. But like some endurance athletes that are just the best in the world come right here from Cedar City. And a lot of people don't know that.
Well, and a lot of times when people think running and mountains, when it comes to Utah, they're thinking Park City, right? Or maybe in this area, they're thinking Flagstaff, Arizona, or Colorado. You see a lot of professionals go to these different areas. And I don't think Cedar City, as far as professional trail running, is on anyone's radar. I mean,
it's a hidden gem.
Yeah, it's a hidden gem.
It really is. It's a hidden gem. And we gotta, I mean, I want people to come, but I also am like, shh.
Yeah, I know. It's like a fine balance, right?
Because it's nice.
when you were talking about your story in India, and the growth and you're talking about training in jungles. Well, that's the concrete jungle, the epitome of concrete jungle. We'll never be a concrete jungle here. No. And we do have growth. And what I like is we have a more balanced growth than what you're seeing in a lot of areas. Even St. George, south of us, is just exploding. Northern Utah and Cedar City, Iron County area, we're growing at a nice, steady, moderate growth and planning in ways that's preserving this outdoor way of life that so many people come to live here for. I mean, that was one of the huge appeals to me and my wife, was the outdoors. We're both runners as well, which, by the way, I'm going to have to connect your wife with my wife sometime. She needs some good training friends, and one time when we spoke on the phone a few months back, you're like, oh, we'll have to go on a run sometime. And I'm like, yeah, you're just going to crush me. But what's great too, is I like you talked about some of your mentors and also the crossover between trail and road running, because what people don't realize, especially with elite runners, there's a caliber of running, whether you're trail or road, your fitness has to be such. I mean, you said you kind of dabbled into the road and you ran, I think it was a 2:23 marathon, right? Somewhere around there.
Yeah, I've never really focused on the marathon, but
that's my point. And that wasn't even your focus, which is still in the 5-minute mile range, right? So it's insane to me. And so I love that. Well, okay. So now what I really want to hear a lot about is just give me the skinny on Western states. We can take, you can dabble into whatever you want with it. But before Western states, even last year, you had mentioned that you were coming off an injury, right? Mm-hmm. And leading up to eventually getting to Western states, during that injury time, that's hard for a professional athlete to think, okay, where am I going? I mean, what was going through your mind during that injury time? And then I want to get into Western states for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty tough. I'd gone 6 years in my professional career without much injury at all. But I kept having this kind of nagging little knee injury that kept coming up. And it was more like my patellar tendon was just always inflamed.
It's irritated,
and I couldn't figure it out. And I ended up starting Western States in 2023. And there was an instant where I actually fell on the trail. I hit my knee on a rock.
That exact knee.
Yeah, the exact knee. And something gave. And I was like, oh no, this is not good. And ended up pretty much gutting out the next 40 miles of the race, trying to figure out a way to get a finish. Yeah. And I ended up having to drop out. But it ended up being a blessing in disguise, because from that, I realized what it was. I met with a doctor. I started hey, I need to figure what's going on.
Rehabbing it.
We got an MRI, we got x-rays, did all that stuff. And we found out that I had a massive spur that was underneath my patellar tendon.
Oh, wow.
And it was sitting there rubbing on my patellar tendon anytime I bent my knee. And of course, you're bending your knee a lot when you're running. It would just rub on that patellar tendon, and it developed a chronic tendonitis, and it was just poking right into the tendon. And when I had fell, I actually fractured that spur. And so I had a fracture and a spur together. And I was like,
double whammy.
This isn't good.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I ended up getting a surgery, cleaned all that up. They removed it. They shaved it all down.
Were you just stressing out at this time
too?
I
was super stressed. I mean, I was like, man, am I going to be able to come back from this? The rehab was really hard.
Yeah.
It took about 9 months to actually start feeling decent again. And through all that, I mean, of course I had to shut down my season. I wasn't able to compete at the World Championships that year. Wasn't able to do my goals that I had set.
Yeah.
And, I was in a contract year as well. So I was like, man, am I going to get dropped by my sponsors?
Right.
Luckily, my sponsors believe in me and they support me, and they were like, yeah, we're going to renew your contract and no issues at all. We know you'll come back from this. And yeah, I just worked my butt off. I worked so hard to come back. And it was good because I developed a lot of habits during that time, not just physical habits like strength training and different things like that, but mental habits that have just made me a stronger athlete and a more well-rounded athlete. And I actually came off that injury better than I've ever been in my career. This year was one of the best years I've ever had in my career. I mean, across the board, I won Black Canyon, like you said. I finished podium at Western States in the fastest time I'd ever ran on that course. And then I ended up winning the 100K World Championships at CCC this year.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I can't thank the people enough that helped me get through that. A lot of them were locals. Like the doctor that did my surgery is from here in Cedar City. A lot of the PTs and strength training people that I met with were from either here or St. George, and sports med doctor from St. George, and different people like that have just really helped me get back on my feet and be better than I've ever been before. I'm stronger, I'm healthier, I'm happier, and I'm just on a really good level. I'm doing really well right now.
Well, one of the bad habits, most people, but runners in particular, is as we get older, we're already horrible at runners, are at strength training, proper nutrition, those sorts of things. But as we start to get older, everybody has the bad habit of just still thinking they're in their 20s, right? And so we don't develop the good habits that maintain. But the truth is, especially in distance running from road to trail, the 30s is actually some of the prime time for professional runners. If you look at a lot of professional runners that are in their 30s, if they've done it right and they've taken care of their bodies and done what they're supposed to, you see huge successes. I mean, I was so elated because I knew you. I've been following you for years, and I knew you had that injury. And when I saw you making this comeback, I thought, "Holy cow! He's really just dug his heels in and grinded it out, right?" And anyways,
and it's a profession. I mean, you surround yourself with incredible people and a team. Like, I think a lot of people think sometimes that I just do this as a hobby or for fun, or like, how can this be a career, right? This is a career. Like, I get paid real money to do this. Like, I'm one of the best in the world. And with that, like, I have to invest in my body. I have to invest in my team and in myself. And I do that. Like, I really focus on all the little details. Like, I have sports psychologists I work with. I have a sports nutritionist I work with. I have, sports scientists that I go get tested in labs, and I figure out all these little things so that I can dial in my nutrition and my race strategy and different things like that. I have a professional coach, like one of the best, if not the best coach in the world. His name's Robbie Britton, that I work with. And like, I have a whole team around me, and then I have my family and my friends as well. Like, this is a career, and this is something that I want to do for years to come. Like, I'm 33 years old right now. I still have at least, I would say 8 to 10 more years left in me if I can stay healthy and I can continue to develop these habits. So that's what I'm really focused on right now, is being healthy, putting the right team around me, and being as professional as I can, because I love it. I love my life. I love the lifestyle I live, and I want to be the best that I can be. I mean, I want to continue to win world championships. I want to win Western States and different things like this. Like, you talked about Western States, and I finished second. I finished third at Western States. Right. The goal is to win that race. Yeah. And I'm going back again in 2025, and that's the focus. Is I just started my first block of training to get me ready for Western States in 2025.
Man, I am so pumped for that. When you do, I've got to have you back and let's chat about it. But I just think that's such an amazing goal to shoot for, and the fact that you have that reality there. And I like what you said. A lot of people, what people don't realize about the trail running and running in general, professionals, you are working day in and day out. That's your job. And a huge part of making that possible, and I'm going to do a little plug for you here, are your sponsors. So you've talked about Hoka. Talk about some of your other sponsors. And then after that, I promise I'm going to have you just give me the skinny on Western States.
Yeah,
so
you're good. Yeah. No, so I work with Hoka. They're my main sponsor. Mm-hmm. They pretty much own my head to toe.
You are a Hoka employee, basically.
Yeah.
With your contract.
I work with them. They're awesome. They support me really well. The shoes are incredible. Couldn't do it without them. I work with a watch company called Koros.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah. So I have a sunglass company called Sun God that I work with. They're based out of the UK. I have a nutrition sponsor called Precision Fuel and Hydration that I work with. And then I work with a couple other, like I work with a sock company called Cedar, based out of France. And then Squirrel's Nut Butter, Currans. So I have like a good amount of sponsors, and everyone, chips in a little bit to help support me in all this with different things. And it's not just product, of course, like this is a career. And so you're making money and you're doing all that as well. Then I have like a coaching business that I run as well. So
I did see that on your website.
Yeah. So I'm a coach as well. So there is the professional, athlete side of things, and I am a full-time professional athlete, but then I have a small like coaching business that I run as well.
Give a plug. What's the web address for that?
Hawks Running, hawksrunning.com.
Cool.
And so, I have done that for years. I coach people from all around the world. I really enjoy it. Like, I don't need to coach, but I love coaching. And that's what I studied here at SUU is I studied exercise science and human performance. And I was actually going to go to medical school with that or to physical therapy school. That was the goal.
Right.
But then this professional running came into play and I was like, hey, let's pursue this, see what happens.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, well, it's actually a lot better lifestyle and better career path for me to do this.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I love coaching, and it's something that I can do on the side because I can't run all day.
Yeah.
Of course. So I'll run, do what I need to do my strength training, do my physical therapy, my recovery, blah, blah, blah. And then I have a little time to sit down, relax, and just do some coaching on the computer. And it's a good life. It's not bad.
Coaching is a lot of fun.
Yeah. And it's awesome to see people's like successes and see them like, improve and achieve their goals. And, whether that be like a race performance or whether that be they're just trying to lose some weight or they're just trying to get back into shape. It's so cool. Yeah. And I have a really good relationship with all my athletes, and it's fun to be able to interact with them in that way.
Yeah. So with your Coros sponsorship, I'm kind of maybe too much of a data nerd. Like after you do a race, do you just like delve into all the data and look at all your splits and your heart rates and cadence and all that stuff? Or do you try to not get too bogged down by that? Some people have different approaches.
Yeah. Before I answer that question, actually, I need to give one more plug.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So before all this, before I got Hoka and all these other sponsors, St. George Running Center was actually my first sponsor.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm telling you, like, that is an awesome store. It's an awesome,
Steve's awesome.
Steve
for
Hooper,
the region,
the owner of the store. He's been like a father figure to me over the years. And honestly, like, if you're local and you're looking for good running shoes, you're looking for, a way to get out and start going on all this, go to the St. George Running Center. They'll take care of you because they were my first sponsor before I became a pro.
Really?
They supported me and they still continue to support me today. Yeah. And I couldn't have done it without them. Incredible people, incredible atmosphere, and incredible product that they sell there.
When they sponsor a lot of local events, they sponsor our Cedar City Half Marathon here and all over Southern Utah.
Yeah, they support all of Southern Utah. They sponsor our race there at Great Challenge as well.
I actually think I met your brother, Levi, right?
Yeah, he works there.
Does he? Okay, yeah, I met him before you and stuff. So it's awesome.
But yeah, going off on Coros, like, I work a lot with Coros on different like data points and different things like that. Like we monitor my heart rate, we monitor my HRV, different things like that to kind of see exactly where I'm at in training cycles to make sure that I'm doing my workouts at a specific pace or a specific effort. Because there's always like you don't want to progress too quickly, but you want to progress fast enough.
Right.
Because if you're trying to push the limits too quickly or too early on in the season, the body won't respond. It'll break, or you'll just get yourself into a hole that's hard to dig yourself out of. So you have to be really smart and calculated on how you do this. So like, I sit down with my coach and we kind of talk about these things and he, prescribes my training for me to make sure that I'm progressing in the right way. And then we use some of that Coros data, and I work with Coros as well to kind of figure it all out. I'm monitoring my heart rate on every run. Using a lot of the different splits and different things like that to kind of figure it all out. I mean, it's pretty dialed for the most part. I mean, there are days when I'm just going out and running easy and not, turning the watch off and not caring about things.
Sure.
But for the most part, yeah, I'm a professional, and I have to be professional.
Do you use the armband or the chest strap, or you just go off the wrist?
Armband. Yeah. Okay. So Coros has a new armband that they use, and that they created, and it's pretty awesome.
That's great.
It's very accurate as well.
Okay, well, I've teased it up. I kept leading to it and kept stopping. Just tell me about Western States 100 and your experience this year and going into it.
Yeah. So Western States this year, like, it wasn't perfect, but I was fit enough to do well. And I knew that. Like, so I had that injury, right, in 2023, bounced back from that, ran Black Canyon, had a great performance there. Then after Black Canyon, I ended up developing another injury. I think it was kind of a compensation injury. Yeah. I ended up straining my calf.
Oh, really?
And had it just popped and had some issues with that. And I had to take pretty much 8 to 10 weeks of very limited training, trying to recover and get back off of that. And so about 10 weeks out from Western States, which to get ready for a big race like that, you usually need about 10 to 12 weeks at the least. 16 weeks is probably more ideal of a training block to really prepare for a big performance. I had about 10 weeks out. I was like, I can't run much. Like, my calf is still hurting me. Like, what am I going to do? I was dealing with some other issues. I sat down with my coach and said, what are we going to do? And he said, let's give it 2 more weeks. We can do a little bit, see what happens. And in 2 weeks, we can make that decision. Because I knew I was fit, and I knew there was still some fitness in there. Right. Because I had that incredible performance at Black Canyon. Right. But then I had lost a lot of that with the injury. It only takes a few weeks to lose a lot of fitness. And I was like, oh man, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to line up and do what I want to do. Because for me, I want to line up at a race and be prepared to be able to compete for the win. Yeah. Like, I'm not just going to go and line up for a race and be like, oh yeah, I'll just get a finish here. Yeah. Because like I said, this is my career, and I could push that race off and maybe get ready for another big one. Right. And my whole thing was World Champs, or CCC, which is that big performance, that big race, that 100K, is the end of August. And I was like, well, if I run Western States and I'm not prepared to run it, is it going to affect the CCC in August? Maybe I should just get rid of Western States and just focus on CCC the end of August, because that was a bigger race. And about 8 weeks out, I was starting to feel good again. And was like, I wonder what's going to happen here. And I had a buddy who actually flew in, and he was coming to train with me here in Cedar City. He's from New Zealand, and he's one of the best ultra runners in the world. So he came in, and we started training together, and I started feeling good. And I started sitting down with my coach, and I'm like, I might be okay. Let's see. And he's like, well, let's give it another 2 to 4 weeks, see how the fitness progresses, and then we can make another decision. And so I kept training. I kept positive. I kept trying to be as optimistic as possible. And I started developing some decent fitness. It actually came back pretty quickly. And so at the end of, I think it was May, I was out about 4 weeks out from the race. Wow. I was like, yeah, I think I can do this. I don't know if I can win, but I think I can compete for a podium. And if I execute like I know I need to, I think I can do pretty well. And so we decided to give it a go and go after Western States, because that was the goal. And it meant a lot to me. I got injured at that race in 2023. I wanted to come back and redeem myself. Right. You had a golden ticket from Black Canyon. I had a golden ticket from Black Canyon. I had kind of set my whole season up for that. Yeah. And so, I decided, okay, let's give it a go. Lined up at the race. And I honestly ran the best that I could with the fitness I had. Gotcha. I wouldn't say I was the fittest I've ever been in my life, but I was fit enough to do well. And that's what I focused on. And I focused on what I could control. I didn't focus on anything that I couldn't control. And I went out there and I executed my game plan and finished third. I ran 83 minutes faster than I've ever ran on that course. Really? in very hot conditions too.
What's the elevation like on that to give?
So the race is 100 miles. It runs from pretty much Lake Tahoe to Auburn, California, which is just on the outskirts of Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 100 miles with about 18,000 feet of elevation gain.
Yeah.
Running, through the Granite Chief Wilderness up there. It's not smooth. Like it's not a smooth, like flat.
It's technical
race.
terrain.
It's
we're
technical.
talking about. Yeah.
It's mountain terrain, and it gets really hot. Like the race, especially the second half of the race, you're running in close to 100-degree temperatures, sometimes over 100-degree temps. It's notorious, or it's known for its like heat. And it was a pretty hot year. I think it got up to like 98, 99 degrees on race day.
Wow.
And but I executed a flawless race in terms of execution.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the fitness enough to be able to like
push
compete with the top guys.
Yeah.
The guy that ended up winning and the guy that took second. But I still finished third, and I ran the third fastest time ever on the course.
Wow. So the top three on your third fastest time or third fastest time ever?
Ever.
So the top three guys, were they all course record?
So I actually I think I ran the third fastest person on the course.
Gotcha.
Fourth fastest time ever, because the guy that won has the course record.
Yeah, Jim Walmsley.
And he was only 4 minutes off his course record.
Wow.
So he ran 14 hours and 13 minutes.
Yeah.
The guy that took second, I ended up losing to him by 15 seconds.
Oh my goodness. Was it a hustle at the end?
So I ended up having to run a sub 5 minute mile. I think I ran like a 4:50 mile
on that last
mile.
I did see
chasing him.
Yeah, I didn't see the video of the finish, but I did see that last mile.
So it was about like 9 miles to go in the race. I heard he was coming back because he was ahead of me. Yeah, and I heard he was starting to come back, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll catch him. Maybe I'll catch him. And I kept going. I kept thinking, oh, he's gonna be, I'm gonna turn one of these corners, and all of a sudden I'm gonna see him. Never saw him. We get to the last turn, like literally a mile to go. Yeah. It's a mile, like slightly downhill and it finishes on the high school track in Auburn, California. Yeah. I look down the hill and I see him.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, and he was like struggling. You could tell he was running pretty slow. And I was like, oh shoot. All right. I have to give it a go. Yeah. And so I just gave everything I had, started like running as fast as I can. I ran like a 4:50 mile, that last mile. We were on the track. So the last 200 meters of the race is on the track.
Here comes your SUU days back.
We were on the track at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
And he ended up beating me by like, I think it was close to 15 seconds.
That's crazy.
But we're friends. Yeah, yeah. Of course, we're competitors when we're competing. Yeah. But after we embraced each other and, hey man, like great fight. Yeah. Like, thanks for pushing me. We both ran incredible times. Like we couldn't complain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Rod Farvard.
Okay.
So he lives in Mammoth Lakes, California.
Nice.
And he's actually a Hoka athlete as well. So the top three guys were all Hoka athletes. Me, Jim, and Rod. So
that's awesome. A couple things that stood out to me while you're talking is one, maybe I need to bug you about coaching because my goal is just to run a 450 mile, one 450 mile, because I wasn't a distance runner as a kid. Yeah. I did track, hurdles, sprints, jumps my whole life. I didn't get into distance running until after I was married. So I'm like, I just got to run a sub 5 minute mile. And here you ran a sub 5 minute mile at the end of 100 miles and 18,000 feet of elevation. Yeah.
It wasn't fun. Let me tell you that much. It hurt.
Well, that's where the mental toughness comes into. Yeah.
My body pretty much shut. So they were like interviewing me after, and I was sitting there, getting interviewed. And all of a sudden I started cramping like crazy.
During
like
the interview.
My forearms, my like face was cramping. And I'm like, I started like slurring my words. Like, and they're like, oh shoot, he's cramping. I went and got some electrolytes in me and I was fine. But like I gave so much that last mile that I think my body just kind of went into a little bit of a seize there and I had to replenish. So,
well, it's funny that you say that too. Oh man, I'm good at digressions, but when I did my ultra, which was only a 50K, so we're talking, 34 miles, something like that, 34 miles, I can't remember. I was running downhill and I booked it to pass a bunch of people and I was staying past them for quite a while. And all of a sudden I felt my calf just start to slowly seize up And I was by myself at this point, and all of a sudden I just like a chopped down tree. I just went into the bushes. My calves completely I just fell in the bushes. I wish somebody was there to get it on video, but sometimes your body just does what it's going to do.
Yeah. And also I don't know if I was like I said, I wasn't in top shape. Like I was in good shape, good enough, but I wasn't in the top shape that I've ever been. And like case in point is, so like 9 weeks after that, I ran CCC in France. Like we went out to France, we lived in France, we trained for that race. And I ended up winning that race by a pretty large margin. It was a pretty dominant performance, and my fitness was really good at that point because I had 9 more weeks of training and to get ready for that. And so like my thought is like, well, if I can just stay healthy, I can have consistent training over the next, time now. And if I can go into Western States in 2025 with the shape I had at CCC, I think I can win the race. Like I really do think that I'm capable and I have the ability, and I know how to race it now. I know how to execute. And so that's the big goal for 2025 is like stay healthy, have that fitness, and go into that race just at top fitness so I can run that. Because I was only 15 minutes off the course record. With better shape, I think I could challenge that course record.
Yeah. I love it. I love the mindset that you have going into that. And I just am so pumped now to watch you race that next year.
Yeah. The cool thing too is my training partner who actually trained here in Cedar City with me. So, he trained in Cedar City, finished 4th.
Really?
So he was right behind me at Western States. He also finished 4th at the World Champs or the CCC, UTMB race. So 2 guys from Cedar City in the top amazing. 4 at Western States. There's something about Cedar City, like, it's a great place to train, and also like just the access to the trails we have here to get specific. The heat, like we talked about the heat for Western States. Yeah. Of course we have the heat, to be able to train in the heat. You can drop down a little bit if you need to and get even more heat. Yeah. We were both like kind of joking about that is like, the year I actually took 2nd at Western States, I was also training here in Cedar City. So like we've had a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place performance at the most historical, prestigious 100-miler in the world. Yeah. And the trainings happened here in Cedar City.
I love that. So, well, I had a friend who asked me one time, he's like, well, what elevation are you sleeping at? And I was like, 6,000, something like that. And he has, what do they call them? Is it a hyperbolic chamber or that people sleep in? Like they'll get these little tents, and he's like, well, I'm sleeping at 9,000. I'm like, well, I don't need to sleep in a weird contraption to get the elevation.
So I have a cabin up on the mountain here, family cabin that we have up on Kolob Road. Okay. And it's at like over 9,000 feet. So I sometimes go up there and sleep in that to get a little bit of altitude gains. Yeah. And I also do a lot of running up there on Kolob Road because it's an awesome road to run on and gravel bike on as well. I do a lot of gravel biking, and Cedar City it's one of the best places in the world to gravel bike. Yeah. Especially if you go up there. Like,
I noticed that you do a lot of cross training with the gravel bike.
And so like, it's just awesome. And like being able to go up to the family cabin and have access to 9,000 feet, 10,000 feet almost. Yeah. And then be down here. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, okay, just a couple things to kind of wrap up. One thing that I really loved you said, and it's going back to part of our earlier conversation, you said you focused, and with Western States, you focused on what you can control. Mm-hmm. And there are a few things that you've said that have resonated with me personally, because my brother, who passed away from cancer, when he was sick, I would ask him occasionally, like, how are you doing in this area or that area? And he would just say, I don't worry about things I can't control. Mm-hmm. And he would say, I focus on what I control. And he was so young, like in his early 20s. And I just remember just being so astounded by that. And how much that applies to our lives. And he was a runner. And there's something about that mental strength that strengthens you in so many areas to help you achieve those goals. And anyways, I just had to plug that out there for my brother, Alex Holka. He's a stepbrother, but love that kid, knew him since he was 6 and watched that. So
that's how I try to live my life is I don't, sweat the small stuff, and I focus on what I can control. Yeah. I can't focus on things that I can't control, because if I do that, it's no point. Like, it's just going to stress you out. It's just going to cause a lot of, mental strife, and you're just going to be like worried about everything, like I'm not afraid of much.
Yeah.
And I think the reason being is I focus on what I can control, and, and I don't know, I think it's a good way to live.
Yeah.
And it's helped me with my career, but it's also helped me with my life. I love traveling the world. I love experiencing different cultures and people, and yeah, it's been fun, and it's all rooted around like, yeah, focus on what you can control, and have fun doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Hayden, I am so grateful to have you here. I'm grateful that you're not only an ambassador for the sport, an ambassador for Utah, but honestly, an ambassador for our local area here, Cedar City and Iron County. I mean, it's clear opportunities that you've had in your life, and yet you and your family choose to be here. And we're just grateful to have you in our community. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.